Welcome to another episode of How I Got In. I'm Mark Davis. I'm your host, and you probably know how the show works by now. Each week, we talk to a student from a different school. We look at a different college across the United States. It could be an Ivy League school on the East Coast, maybe a great engineering school on the West Coast, maybe a big state school in the South. But we look at all different types of colleges, and we do a Google Hangout. With a student, a real live student who goes to that school, so we could talk to them about their journey that they went on to get into that school. How did they end up successfully getting there? What did they do in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade? And they're going to share their stories with you. So if you're going through your college prep journey, hopefully these stories will be inspiring and they'll give you some really practical hands-on advice for getting into the school that you want to get to, whether it's the school that we're talking about today or a different school. So let's dive right in. Today we're talking about a really cool school. It's the University of Florida. And to help us learn more about this school, I want to welcome Carina Daidone, who is a sophomore at the University of Florida. Hi, Carina.
Hi.
So are you at the university at the moment?
I am.
Yeah. So where is it's in Gainesville, or there's different campuses?
It's in Gainesville. There's the one. They only have one campus.
Okay. Well, yeah, I did some research on the school, and I found some little tidbits about it. I guess there's about 50,000 students, so it's a pretty big school. Yeah. And so you're a sophomore. You're in your second year?
I just finished my second year. I'm going to be a rising junior.
Okay, excellent. Well, I want to get into into your story. Now, before we do that, I pulled up some like I said, some information here. So, University of Florida, founded about 107 years ago. I guess a pretty big sports school with the Gators.
Very big.
Yeah. So what are the biggest sports there?
Obviously, football. Last season didn't go too well.
Oh no! What happened? I
wasn't following. The majority of the team got injured.
Oh. Yeah, that's not too
didn't work very well. We had a really great basketball team this past year. Our gymnastics team we're co-champions, and softball just won the national championship last night.
Nice. So is sports a big part of the culture on campus?
Very big.
Yeah.
Very big. Yeah, and that's at any state school really, especially in Florida.
Right.
It's huge.
Well, not only are you a big state school, but University of Florida, and keep me honest here, it's the 8th biggest campus in the U.S., is that right?
I believe it, yeah.
Yeah.
Everywhere you turn, there's like a new place for me to discover.
Right. So we'll dive a little bit deeper into the school, but let's start at the very beginning with your story, right? So you've been at the college for 2 years now, 2 years now. But let's rewind to the very beginning, right? At what age would you say you first decided you wanted to go to college, or first even started thinking about it?
I started a college list in the 5th grade.
Fifth grade.
I had I think it started with Brown. I don't know why Brown, but I started with Brown, and then it just kind of was constantly changing every day. Oh, I want to go to this school now.
In 5th grade.
In 5th grade.
Now, was this something that you just did on your own, or were your parents?
Yeah, that was kind of me on my own.
Yeah.
I don't know why that started, but it did.
Well, that's a good age to start. So when did you actually start, thinking about planning for it? I mean, was that 9th grade, 10th grade?
Easily 9th grade, yeah.
Yeah? So
yeah,
what? So by the time you got into high school, you were already thinking about it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah? And so was there any sort of college prep stuff that you had to do when you were in 9th grade? Or is that too early to start?
I went to a big public school, but the thing is that they have I was in the STEM program, so it's an emphasis on science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and even though I didn't end up majoring in anything like that, it was still very competitive, and it was kind of like we were like our own group of the high school, and it was very intensive to start off in really intensive science, so I immediately started taking AP classes.
In 9th grade, you started taking AP classes?
In 9th grade.
Which ones?
I took AP Environmental Science, AP Human Geography, and there was another one. I think those were the 2 I took.
Well, that's pretty tough, diving right in 9th grade into AP classes. I mean, were you one of the few kids in your school who were doing that?
It's at the school I went to. It was very common for you to take an AP class. It was highly encouraged.
Since it's a competitive STEM school, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, my 3rd day, I was in a creative photography class, and I wasn't having it. I'm like, I'm not doing this. And I walked right up to my principal. I'm like, I want to be an AP Human Geography. And he's like, okay. And he just took me to his office, put me in, and I walked right into the class.
Nice, nice. So you sort of took stock of where you're at, and you're like, I got to make a change here.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice. So you did the AP classes in ninth grade. Did you take the tests at the end of ninth grade?
I did. Yeah, it's required at the high school to take the test. Unfortunately, they paid for us. Like, I mean, they're like $80 a test, I think. So I mean, all throughout high school, if my dad had to pay every single exam, like,
right,
would have been quite a small fortune.
Yeah, just for the AP tests. Forget all the other stuff. Right. So how was that studying? I mean, you're ninth grade and you're studying for AP exams. I mean, is that just a whole new world?
It was. I don't think I really knew what I was doing. I was really fortunate to have a math teacher who really wanted me to excel in my classes, and because I was kind of like, my math class was just easy for me, she would let me go sit in the back and study, especially for my AP environmental exam, and I would just sit there, and that was like an hour a day for me during the school to get that done. But I would just use, like, I think I used the Barron's Review book for that.
The Barron's Review book. Any classes, or did you just sort of self-studied? Yeah.
Self-study.
All right. So you took the exams, and I guess you waited around for your scores. And did you do anything for that summer after ninth grade? A summer job or internship?
I went to sleepaway camp.
Oh, sleepaway camp. Very nice. All right. So you went sleepaway camp, and then you come back and you're in 10th grade.
Right.
Right. So I'm guessing some more AP classes.
Yeah, definitely. I took AP Biology, ACE Marine Science, ACE General Paper. ACE is kind of like the European version of AP, essentially. And then AP World History.
AP World History. Those are hard classes. I took AP Biology, and I still remember it. Do they still teach the 8 stages of glycolysis?
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite class.
Oh, brutal. Hard stuff. All right, so you're taking the AP classes in 10th grade. Now, PSATs, a lot of kids in 10th grade wonder, should I take the PSATs in 10th or wait till 11th? What did you do?
I think I did take them sophomore and junior year.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And did you find that was useful to take them in 10th grade?
I don't think I really understood at that point the significance of it and how I should be looking at it.
Right.
I mean, for me especially, because I was kind of like a class behind in math because of where I was at, where my middle school was at. Like, a lot of it I hadn't even touched yet. Couldn't even dream of, like, knowing that stuff. So, for me, I don't think it was an indicator of what I was going to be doing in the future. Maybe for reading and writing, because, like, that wasn't a big deal at all. But I think it's also important for students to, like, look at it and to take the exam seriously instead of just going to school, taking it, and I'm just going to, like, fill everything in.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they really have to wrap their brains around it and sort of be motivated.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those things. And, a lot of kids, I think, don't even realize that when you take the PSATs in 10th grade, first of all, you could, you're sort of registered for the National Merit Scholarship, which is good. And but even more importantly, it tells you what you need to really focus in on when you take the SATs, because it gives you sort of a prediction of what you'll get on the SATs. So you can really put a great study plan together. Okay, so you're at 10th grade. I'm just sort of want to keep following the journey here. Now, at what point did you start really looking at different schools? You mentioned Brown, right? But how big did that list get? Was it 3, 10?
Oh, it was constantly changing. Like, schools, I think in the end, I mean, I wouldn't even ever consider Brown. Sophomore year, I wasn't so much making a list. I mean, there was definitely, like, I loved, my sleepaway camp was in North Carolina, and I wanted to be in North Carolina. So I think it was summers after sophomore year, when my parents came to pick me up from camp, like, we drove down all through North Carolina, just like South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, and just like went to schools all down the coast there.
Oh, nice. And at what point did Florida end up on the list?
Well, I mean, given that it's a state school, it was kind of a given. We have, like, Florida prepaid, which helps, like, my parents kind of, like, saved over time, so that, when I do go to college, it's not them taking so much money out of their own pocket, and they already have that money set aside for my tuition.
Right.
And then there's the Bright Future Scholarship, which gives me about, like, $1,500 a semester. That was good, that I would potentially be eligible for.
Right. Cool. So you went to high school in Florida. So University of Florida is a state school for you. So even though I think, don't they describe it as a public Ivy? Isn't it supposed to be like sort of on par with
Yeah,
some
I've heard that
others?
several times. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's what do they say? It's 14th in the nation. I mean, it's a great school, but the price. I mean, how much did the financials impact? I mean, was it substantially cheaper to go to a
It's
state school?
significant. You know, for me, it'd be the difference between $50,000 and I think it comes out to be 19,000 a year
19,000
plus. Yeah.
a year. Okay, and that's just for the tuition. That's not for room and board.
No.
Right. Right.
That's expensive.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, and it's also so important to try and find that balance now, and not to get huge amounts of student debt. By the time you get out of college,
Yeah.
I mean it's so important.
I
Okay.
was pretty set on going out of state, and then I kind of realized that I'm like, I don't want that debt.
Yeah, exactly. Who does when you're just beginning your career? I did the same
Yeah.
thing. I went to a state school. Yeah. Um, so now let's move into 11th grade, right? The big year of the SATs, right? So how did you prepare for the SATs?
Junior year, I mean, I'm the oldest in my family, so I'm the guinea pig, and we just figure things out with me. We didn't really prepare junior year, and I probably should have. I definitely regret not preparing. Like, honestly, I think everyone should start like fall junior year, like just get it going then, and then take your first exam like spring junior year. That way, you get plenty of time because I waited till I think fall of senior year to take my first exam. And there's so much to do. Like, you're trying to prepare for these exams, and then you've got college applications opening up in the beginning of the fall, and then you've got the beginning of your senior year coming up with all these like AP exams, and like now you really understand it's important to pass because then you don't have to retake that class again in college. So then that was like my biggest mistake there was waiting so long.
Mm.
I just hired a private tutor.
You hired a private tutor, and
Yeah.
did you have a good experience with the tutor?
I think like after taking, I think the first SAT and ACT, the scores weren't exactly what I would want. And then after taking I took the ACT a second time, and my scores were dramatically changed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, I mentioned SATs are in the 11th grade. Of course, they're in the 12th grade primarily, but SAT or the ACT you mentioned as well. So you took both tests.
I did. I think I only took the SAT once or twice.
Okay.
I can't remember. I took the ACT 3 times.
Right. Okay. And you took an ACT 3 times. Okay. And was it similar studying for both tests? If you...
I would say, like, to me, they kind of seem similar. Obviously, the ACT has the science portion of it, and, like, that's a whole nother ballgame. And I feel like with that, there's so many people at different levels of science, and how can you, like, incorporate stuff that, I never took physics, and there was definitely some stuff on there. So I was kind of iffy. My score definitely would have been higher if there wasn't a science portion on it.
Right. So that was one of your areas that you wanted to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So so you take your tests, and it comes time to start applying for colleges. Now, when did you submit your applications?
Oh, I was like all gung ho. I was ready August 1st.
August 1st.
Yeah. I like as soon as they opened, I started working on it, and I kind of spread it out. I was applying to a lot of schools just because I just wanted to see like where I could get in, and even though I probably knew that realistically I was going to end up in Florida, or like in the state of Florida at least. So I think I created like my little planner, and I had everything spread out, and I just kind of slowly worked on everything. And of course, I couldn't finish a lot, especially the private schools. I couldn't finish a lot of them because I had to wait to get my recommendations from my teachers. So I had to wait for school to start.
Well, you say you were ready on August 1st with your applications, and that tells me that you were working on this through the summer. We often hear about students who just try to relax and take it easy in the summer, but you really, when it comes to college prep, you really can't do that, right? I mean, you just have to keep, Yeah. All right. So how many schools did you end up applying to?
Like 12.
12. Wow. And did you use the Universal College app or the Common App for any of them?
I used the Common App a majority for the private, definitely for all the private schools.
And how'd that work out for you?
Well, yeah, it worked well. I definitely
well.
was a bit paranoid with the essay because I had to make sure the right school was in like the essay.
Right.
I was fortunate to have an essay that was pretty much used for all of them. So,
okay, nice. So you were able to repurpose your material.
Yeah.
Cool. So all right, so you get your applications in. And then you have to wait, right? I mean,
The waiting game.
do you remember that waiting period when you're waiting for the letters?
Yeah.
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 And how long was that waiting period?
For me, the first school I heard from was Ole Miss, and I heard in October. And I loved the campus. It was absolutely beautiful. I loved it. Just was such a great environment. And so I checked on my computer, I found out, I was like stoked, and I go running down to my dad. I'm like, Dad, I got into Ole Miss. And he just kind of looks at me, he's like, well, obviously. And like your first college acceptance, you get so excited. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to college. Like things are okay. Like I'm going.
Right.
And it's such a relief off your shoulders. And I was just like, my dad's reaction wasn't the best. Going for some, like, yes. So,
you're like,
no.
Dad, I've been working on this for 4 or 5 years now. It's kind of a big deal. All right, so you got at least Ole Miss acceptance in Florida, so you got multiple acceptances.
Yeah.
Which then leads you to one of the hardest questions, right? Which one are you going to choose? I mean, was that a difficult process?
I think my dad kind of made a decision for me. All the private schools, like once we got all the financial packages in and we kind of looked at all, like I've definitely heard of people saying like they've actually gone to the schools that they wanted to go to and like gone to like the financial services and like talked to them and been able to kind of like work a deal essentially. But like once again, I was kind of the guinea pig of my family, so like we didn't really know what to do. So I kind of knew we're staying in state.
Right. So it was a relatively easy decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when did you accept? What was that? Spring of your senior year?
Yeah.
Okay.
We kind of like put like a $200 deposit down, depending on the school.
$200 deposit, and then did you get a severe case of senioritis at that point, or were you able to?
I think I definitely fought it.
Yeah, not easy.
Like I knew, like I was taking AP microeconomics my spring of my senior year, and like that was like that class you kind of had to really stay on to, and my teacher was not easy, but she was good, and you definitely learned a lot from that class. And because like I stayed on that, I obviously I did well with my exams, so it pays off in the end, and it sucks. Like my brother just went through it, and he was struggling with the whole senioritis thing. Like he got it bad, and there are definitely people who have it bad.
Yeah, it's easy to get it bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost the adrenaline rush, especially if you get accepted to college. It's like you've been working so hard, and it's like, okay, I did it. Now can I at least relax for a minute or two?
Yeah.
But you can't, right? I mean, at that point, you're graduating from high school. That's a big deal. I mean, what did you do in the summer before college started?
Summer before, I just kind of stayed home. I think my mom wanted me to she just kind of wanted to keep me close.
Right.
Yeah. So I just kind of hung out. We went on several vacations throughout the summer. So.
And got yourself got your game face on to begin college.
Big, yeah.
Right. And so, what was that like? I mean, so are you living on campus, living at home?
I lived on campus my first year, and then this past year and this next year I'm off campus.
Okay. So how would you, rate if you had to give it 1 out of 10 your on-campus experience that first year in terms of overall happiness?
I'm not a fan of dorms.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my room was the size of a closet. I remember walking in, I was like, oh my God, I feel like it was a room for a single, expanded into a double.
Right.
It was just whoa. That was small.
Right. And of course you have a roommate who you've never met before. That could go well or not well, I guess.
Yeah, it's always interesting, and I think you learn, especially your freshman year, you learn a whole lot about yourself, and you see how people, they live differently, and what's normal to them is weird to you, and what's normal to you is weird to them. So, you have to learn a lot about who you are and, how you're able to handle certain conflicts. I had a roommate who was, really liked the passive-aggressive, Post-it note on your desk, and it just, didn't go well.
Oh, yeah.
That's not a way to communicate. Don't do that.
Been there. Don't leave the Post-its. Just
don't. It's not going to work well.
Right. Well, you know what? We're almost out of time here. It's been great hearing your story. One other thing I'd like to ask you though is, a number of our viewers are probably going to want to go to University of Florida. It's a great school. So if you had any words of advice to give them for getting into this school, what would you say?
I would say, obviously work hard throughout high school. You want to become the most competitive you can possibly be, especially academically. When you're thinking, especially your senior year, I know a lot of people that kind of decided, oh, I'm going to take an easy senior year, and they didn't take as many AP classes as everyone else is. And especially at the University of Florida, it is extremely competitive. You need to do, even people who would seem like a shoo-in sometimes don't get in. to make yourself the most interesting candidate as possible. That even includes with extracurriculars.
So, like, I mean, extracurriculars are such an important point. I mean, what extracurriculars did you work on in high school?
I was like kind of like, I think my freshman year I was on the varsity soccer team, so that took a little majority of my time. And then and then I was a member of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes like all 4 years, and then there's like 4 clubs I was a part of.
So you
and
really,
then my
so
junior
you
year,
really focused on it on the extracurriculars and really
yeah,
building
yeah,
a story
year,
about yourself.
Yeah, junior year I joined yearbook staff, and then my senior year I was actually copy editor for the yearbook. So like that was extremely time consuming, but I think having like you have to have a leadership position to be competitive. Like there's just no doubt about it.
Right. To be competitive. That's the key word. It's competitive, and you need to make yourself stand out and be memorable, right, to the admissions people. Well, listen, I could talk to you for days. I mean, this is so interesting. But thank you so much for taking some time and sharing your story with our viewers here. I think it'll be really inspirational, and they've got some great, practical advice they can use as they're on their college prep journey. So thank you.
Yeah.
And so next week, we're going to be looking at another great school. This time we're going to go out to the West Coast, and we're going to be speaking to a student from Stanford, a freshman who just got into Stanford, and he's going to share his story with us about how he ended up getting into Stanford and in fact, getting a scholarship as well. So we'll see you next time on How I Got In.